hope we have a good chat today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Be good to hear a bit about you, Jake, as well, like a bit of how you got into it and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Jake. I've started my social media stuff here about 2 years ago. Kind of unknowing, like I didn't intend to blow up like I did, I should say. I've been studying, just all kinds of interesting stuff in this realm for, I'd say about the better part of a dozen years or so. Mud flood and stuff, probably a good, 4 or 5 years at least, convincing myself of it. I was a big history buff growing up, so mainstream history, sad to admit, but the wool was pulled over my eyes. So stuff like the mud flood in Tartaria, that's partly why I talk so much about it, and why I feel so strongly about it is because I was duped, and I was one of those biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest, but haters of people. When I first heard about the mud flood, it's like, oh, come on, that's just no way. Come on, just buried cities like Rome and stuff just in mud. No, that's not possible. Lost cities, Tartaria. But so convincing myself on my own journey of discovery and awakening, convincing myself, and I'm a stubborn individual at times, is a pretty big ordeal for me to come to terms with that much lies of history. And then it just all kind of dominoed almost from there. Like once that first domino fell, Tartarian, the mud floods just kind of opened the floodgates of just how much of our history is just completely false. And I mean, like my father, my late father, he was a big World War II buff. Like this guy could, know a weapon, a plane, or, a soldier from a glance, know exactly what time of arms and armaments it was. Like he was well versed in that stuff. So to just kind of come full circle and realize like World War II, World War One, all of it's at least a vast majority of what they told us about is vastly different from reality. And it's just like I said with my channel, it just accelerated. Like I've been collecting literal terabytes of information for like I said, about a decade, and it was just always pretty much just me, maybe a few friends here and there I'd show, and if they'd listen to me ramble, then great. But I said, oh, I'll just make a couple videos for my buddies, and then I went to bed, woke up, and 20,000 views on one of my mud flood videos later, and 2 years now I guess I'm a TikToker and YouTuber. And
well, we love your content. Like I say, I'm always.
Where did you start your research? Was it just from the internet?
It was a little bit of, I always loved old books, like just like I'd go to rummage sales and flea markets and stuff, and like I just always collect old books. My father too, like, and I just start reading documentaries and stuff like that, and you always know, even just being in the mainstream of history, that there's a certain level of misdirection and obvious fallacies with it, but you kind of ignore the bigger picture of it, and you just kind of go along with the hypocrisies that even in the mainstream, they can't explain certain things, like even the pyramids and stuff. You're just like, oh, okay, I guess it's just the way it is. But the more and more I studied like those old books, started going online, collecting pictures and stuff, the more I just started realizing it's like, wow, this isn't just like one or two weird pictures of giant people or thousands of pictures of giants. And then, I just started going down more and more rabbit holes. And I'm the type of person that I have to have the answer to the unanswerable question, if you will. So it's almost like an enigma and a quagmire. I just kept digging and digging and found like, wow. And then before I know it, I had like terabytes, and then I started sharing it, and people liked what I shared. And that's kind of where it all started.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Amazing stuff.
So would you like to talk to us a little bit about the Tartarian Empire?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see here. I can kind of go into a little bit of my archives here and bring up some imagery. am I able to screen share here? By
Yeah, you should be able
chance.
to, yeah. There should be the option to share.
All right, give me just a moment, gentlemen.
Because this is all fairly new to me. Joe introduced me to Tartarian, and it was quite incredible to start looking at. And for me,
It's like an
it's
awakening.
the
isn't it?
architecture. Well,
Mm.
for me, it's the architecture that was the eye opener. You know, when you're seeing these historical buildings, and when you really think about how long they've been there and who they were built by, it just doesn't add up. The story that they tell you.
I find it
Yes.
fascinating
So
how they have hidden it as well. Like, what was the reason for them to hide it from us?
And that's the
so
biggest
they have
question here.
control of it.
Yeah.
Really, the old saying goes, those who
cool.
control history control the world. And honestly, that's what it is. It's a deliberate and grand scale operation of controlling of technology, controlling of history. Like, we are disconnected from this realm more than any other species. You know, we say quips like we're the only species that has to pay to live on this planet, for example. It goes much, much deeper than that. You just look at the world, the realm around us, everything seems to have a connection. Everything seems to just kind of flow in a harmony, in a symphony. And we are the only species that seem obliviously removed to it.
Yeah.
And I feel
Completely disconnected.
that's not natural. I don't feel that's an organic process that we went through.
No.
I don't feel like we just evolved, biped uprights and just, with our technologies, we lost touch with it. No, you hear about them like calcifying our pineal glands with fluoridification of the water,
Yeah.
the stuff that they put in our foods, like, 90% of the stuff in our grocery stores today, especially in America, is things that weren't there on the shelves 100 years ago. Consequently, cancers, disease, heart disease has skyrocketed in the last 100 years. That's not by coincidence. But Tartaria here, which I can go off on a tangent on those as well. But basically, the Tartarian Empire was where modern day Russia is in a lot of senses, spanning all the way across Europe. And a lot of people, myself included to a degree, find plenty of evidence in them in a country like America and South America. I believe prior to these mudflood resets, land bridge connecting Alaska and Russia were actually land bridges that joined the whole entireties. And I mean, it's like the pyramids and how every single civilization had these same type of pyramid designs aligned with the same stars. They also would worship the same gods and deities. It wasn't just Tartaria that was a realm-wide unifying influence. I think Tartaria, and especially people in like my field, it's kind of almost a catch-all to describe these civilizations and technologies that did indeed expand. We were an expanded, connected realm, not just with one another, but with the world around us.
Yeah.
Meditation was, all the things that humans have capable of has been quelled from us. And I think a big part of it started with Tartaria.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get a good map pulled up here, guys. Sorry, I got so many files. It's just one.
These are great pictures, by the way. I love these old maps.
Honestly, you can find them. Like, that's one of the biggest questions I get asked. Where do you find all this stuff? Where do you find all these images? It's like the truth, and I say it in a lot of my videos, the truth is hidden in plain sight. And literally it is. You just have to know how to get past the little, the gatekeepers of the internet, essentially. Like, you're not just going to go on Google and type in the Tartarian mudflood. You might get a lot of, obviously push misinformation or, like debunker sites that try and explain it. But really, just like all those other fact checker sites, they never actually explain or debunk the mud flood.
No.
And the evidence speaks for itself. Like in my videos, I don't even need to talk most of them. I can just play the roll of photos I have. And here's a really good detailed map. So officially, what they say Tartaria was a placeholder name for parts unknown in the East for the European cartographers. And they just didn't quite know what lied beyond there. And they basically explained it as it was parts of Russia, etc. The Tartars were basically roaming mongrels. They didn't really have a unification. And I believe, China, Russia, all that area was unified Tartaria. That was the Grand Tartarian Empire, if you will. And this is, where these maps, this is from a Russian cartography book. So right there, that completely debunks the narrative of it was a placeholder for European cartographers that didn't quite know what lied beyond where Russia was. This is a literal map from it's the 1890s and these were just me pulling pictures from this map book I got from a digital archive on, I believe it was New York Public Library digital archive of all places. Like, search for some of the words and things I'd say in my video, like mud flood. You're not going to find that stuff in a digital library here. Just like, I could find that in a digital library. But if you type in stuff like Tartary or Tartaria, you'll find bits and pieces of books that link to these like Russian cartography maps of super detailed Tartaria with cities, with just lands. Siberia, for example, we were always told it was just a barren Iceland, basically nothing. But there's maps from the 1800s and before, all the way back to pretty much the 1500s that show Siberia green, lush, with major cities. Those cities are no longer there.
I actually see one of your videos a bit earlier, and when you're showing part of Siberia or Russia with starfall, and it's just bordering the mountain, and there's no water or forest or anything at all there. So there was no reason for an army to build a starfall in that place. Yeah.
Was that on my YouTube?
It was on your YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what one that is. That star fort fascinated me when I found that. Absolutely fascinated me. It was just in the middle of nowhere in the deserts of Turkmenistan, which I don't know if you guys have heard of Turkmenistan or not. Whole nother rabbit hole there.
Right.
The city of Turkmenistan, you're Russ, you said you're in the Middle East?
I am, yeah.
How are you near Turkmenistan? How far away from there are you? Do you know?
I'm based in Dubai, but yeah, it's not far. It's like a 4-hour flight. I've never been. I've been to countries nearby there. I just wondered. She's from that way. Yeah. Aren't starfalls used typically next to water?
I have found them everywhere in deserts. Okay. Water seems to be a big factor of them, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think they're almost like on energy points, like maybe ley lines, if you will. And I mean, that's the thing. Don't let any one of these truth seekers about Tartaria or anything have them say that they know all the answers, because it's basically what we're doing once we've removed the wool from our own eyes, and we're just piecing together bits and pieces of remnants of our actual true history, mixed in with a lot of muck of the BS that we've all been taught. And the significance of Turkmenistan, that's right by where I found that star fort at. Let me see if I can actually get to Google Maps, but Turkmenistan is a country pretty much nobody has heard of, myself included, for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 or so years ago. I mean, I've heard about it bits and pieces, but it's just not anything what you would think it is. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's isolated, and it looks like something right out of the movies, Free Energy, the whole 9 yards. And the geometric structures and all of that, like, and you can't even visit there. That's the crazy part. Tourism is basically non-existent. It is actually the least toured country in the world, essentially. And the oddity of that here, let me just get my Saturn light up here. There we go. Is particular the capital. Let's see. Sorry, I'm doing this all on the fly, gentlemen. So
no, fantastic.
No problem.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I appreciate it. So Ashgabat right here. This city just looks like something right out of science fiction, guys. Like, it's just.
Yeah, I'll say earlier when you're showing some things earlier, it's like, say, it all looks like.
It almost looks like a city built for after the reset. Was some people in my comments have mentioned, and it kind of does. Like, there's basically no people here.
That's crazy.
Like, no cars. Where are the cars? And the city looks so pristine and clean, and the infrastructure here, like, just look at some of these structures. Let's see if I can.
Is this the same place where the president? I think I've seen something about this on another channel.
Look at that.
It's so true that you never hear anything about Turkmenistan.
No,
it's always the surrounding countries, but never Turkmenistan.
What you do hear about it?
It's like a bit like the one in Turkey, that building, wasn't it? The Istanbul.
Okay, $100 if you guys can tell me what that is.
It's a cathode.
It is a Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel.
It is literally, that's what they say it is, and it's actually a Ferris wheel. And the reviews on it, because of the small little bits of people that do actually get the privilege of tourism here, it's all encaged right here. And I mean, look at just the geometric patterns. You'll find this like star fort type pattern everywhere. And mind you, this is where, in the middle of Turkmenistan's desert, is where the star fort was. Officially, the narrative is Russia built it for, some kind of defense fort, and it was never actually used. But you see in that video where it just looked like it was cut in half, wiped out completely. Yeah. Didn't look like just some old abandoned fort built in just the mid 1800s, they say, over some older fort, but still. And this just like the free energy tech right here, free energy tech in these towers.
Yeah.
And it's just abandoned city. Like, mostly everybody works for the government cleaning the streets.
Of course, it's pristine, isn't it? It's absolutely pristine.
Yeah. And they don't pay for their energy. I think actually recently they started paying for their energy, but the government provided all that. But just look at these, it's a pristine utopia that nobody has ever heard of, and it's mostly abandoned. There's barely any street views. It used to be part of the Silk Road trade route, which is even more marvelous. I mean, really, like, I could spend a whole podcast of yours talking about just Turkmenistan. Yeah. There's the gates of hell in the middle of the desert of Turkmenistan, where apparently Russian geologist accidentally dug into a sinkhole of sorts. It's all top of my head, so forgive me if I'm paraphrasing slightly, but so they dug into some sinkhole, fell in with their excavating equipment, and the Russians decided, well, we'll just, like, rather than recover the equipment, light the hole on fire and let the natural gas burn out of it. Well, I believe that was in the maybe 60s or 70s when they decided to ignite that. It is still burning to this day in the middle of the desert. It's just this big, giant sinkhole that, I mean, the name is very fitting for it, the gates of hell.
Is that something to do with Alexander the Great as well, where one of these expeditions across there, and that's something to do with the gates of hell?
I would not be surprised at all. Like, I've learned a lot about Alexander the Great recently. in particular, like he's had experiences with Lemmy, he had experiences with dragons, and I have a picture of him, his armies, and another group of armies that had the Tartarian flag on it.
Yeah, I've seen similar things actually. That's amazing.
Like, I don't think Alexander the Great was, you know,
What they
near
say.
as long ago as they say was. Like, I think a lot of these things that they portray to us in history was not thousands and tens of thousands of years ago, but a lot more of our more recent past, and perverse with like a whitewash of history, if you will. Like,
they like to
horse
take
and buggy.
Yeah, they like to take something true and then warp it, don't they?
Yep, warp it to their own narrative. Look at this. This is a solar energy collector in Turkmenistan.
Oh my God.
Like,
that's crazy.
Extravagance. You would never find this.
Look like something from the future.
It does. And I mean, you could just, this is an antenna tower. Like, this is ether harvesting technology right here. And when you look at Turkmenistan geographically here, I almost think people a lot of say, well, what happened to the Tartarians? Did they go here?
Yeah.
Like, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I mean, you look at this city and it just does not look like a country in the middle of the desert that is under the control of a dictator. That's basically officially the narrative. I mean, look at all of these parks. Like, look at, it's a free energy grid.
Yeah.
It looks like computer grid.
Exactly. It's a grid.
Yeah, looks like a processor.
Yeah.
And it's all about, with the green even on these roofs. That's what really stood out to me here. Like, so like row houses right here, and it's just it's like something out of the movies.
That even looks good. Can you go back to that one picture before? So if you go back to now.
To the pictures or to the map here?
You had just there was one that just looked like a motherboard of a PC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know where. I can probably find some more that looks just.
Yeah, it just like.
Oh, look at this. Okay, this is a big, like, okay, so that's that crazy weird Ferris wheel. Okay, and this is that tower. And just look at in between the Ferris wheel
that
and
looks
that
like
tower.
a chipset. If you look at the smaller buildings below as well, that just looks like a chipset on a motherboard of a PC. That's fascinating.
Yeah, you're an IT, so yeah, you definitely could you see it like clear as day, I bet.
Definitely. Yeah, really.
It also looks like crop circles.
Right.
Like huge crop circles.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
And look at these trees. It almost looks like a simulation of just all these trees. Wow. They're planted, literally planted trees. And it's not just there, like you see it.
That is incredible.
And that's the cool thing about Google Maps and Google Earth, like, again, to the hidden in plain sight, if you will. Like,
they give you it, don't they? But whether or not you choose to look for it.
It's just, you got the narrative that they have instilled in us so well, the government funded education that we've all gotten, and they trust the system that they have invested a lot of money in. And it has done a good job for them of making us not ask questions. We're not a society of free thinkers and innovators and, independent minds. We're made to go to 9 to 5s. We're made to be good, unquestioning, obedient factory workers.
Yeah, good
and
workers.
It's sad because it's all switched like after this last reset. That's why Tartarian, the mud flood, it's so important to me, and especially to make it out there known publicly, because I think that's like the start of what kicked all the stuff we're in now off. The last couple hundred years have all been since this fall of this empire, the empire that had free energy technology that just spanned across their realm. And they had people that weren't impoverished or poor or malnourished. They were just a utopia of freedom. You didn't have to pay for most of your paycheck just to survive in this realm.
What are your thoughts on the time that we are living in now? Like, just to put it in context, I believe that we are being pushed in a certain direction.
I do too. Absolutely. It's all by design again. It's been crafted since the controllers have taken over after the reset. There was a power void after Tartaria fell, and it's been building up and building up to this point that we're at now. It's all just, it almost seems like an orchestrated mess. Like my own home state of Illinois, for example, they recently are passing July 1st, cashless bail. They're removing bail for everything up to murder 2 and kidnapping. And my city I lived in before I moved up into Wisconsin was Rockford, a city of 250,000, give or take. And it was constantly the number 9 most deadliest city in America. And it was right next door, pretty much little Chicago. That area was a war zone. And then they decide the thing to do for Illinois, who is struggling with crime and in poverty, remove bail. Let people that murder, that rape, that burglarize right back on the street. Victims' rights in that state is abolished. Like the victims have no rights. Imagine, if you will, somebody bust in your door, brutally harms you and your family. The cops, if they even come to take them away, and then they're back out on the streets right away. Yeah, they got a court date, but I mean, that's nothing in that is indicative to a society that's on the upward trajectory. And no lawmaker in their right sane mind would think that that's a solution to anything. What does that help?
Yeah, it's like they wrote a list on what do we do to destroy society in the most efficient way, and then they're just going down that list.
Yep, exactly. It's
but like, what is the sense though of, like, eventually surely it will come to their doorstep, the controllers, because if it all goes to pot, surely one day it will come to their doorstep, and that's what I don't understand why they want to do this.
Well, that's the thing. What doorstep are you going to?
Yeah, exactly.
They have underground cities and mountains. Denver Airport, the Ozarks in Missouri. Greenland is a giant bunker for the elites. And that's not even counting the DUMBs or, deep underground military base stuff you hear about. And there's a reason why I stick to the history a lot more in my stuff and the present, because in order to know where you're going, you must first know where you've been.
Yeah,
and if we have no idea where we've been, and people give me shit all the time, it's like, oh, there's, all this stuff going on in the real world. Like, why are you focused about history? And John's like, what difference does it make? It's like, that mindset for one is so mind-numbing. But yeah, if you have no idea about your past, no sense of your reality, of who you are, where you were, like what greatness you're truly capable of, how are you going to stop the evils of today?
Yeah,
it's a typical response though, isn't it, when people say it doesn't make any difference, I still have to wake up and go to work in the morning, and it's like it makes more of a difference than you could ever possibly know, for exactly the reason you just said. Like, to know where you're going in the future, you must understand the history of it.
Here, I'll give you guys,
there's a saying, if you don't know the history, you're doomed to repeat it. So
exactly
it's so important.
And it's exactly it. Like, and that's how our modern education system has been designed for. We don't learn anything about our true past and our true history, whatever it is, like electric cars. Like, everybody thinks Elon Musk, the great electric car guy, and like, oh, electric cars have been around for hundreds, if not a lot longer years. Like,
and even water powered cars,
steam powered cars. cars powered from the electricity above. Like it's literally limitless what potentials we had as humanity. Like Tesla, I don't necessarily like Nikola Tesla, I don't know necessarily if he invented all the things he did, etc. If he was like, a lot of people compare him to the theory that about Shakespeare. I don't know if you've heard about that. Shakespeare is actually just kind of a ghost writer, like like a collective works of poets and stuff. And a lot of people say that about Nikola Tesla almost. And it's hard to say like for sure with anything, with nobody can say. And that's why I said, don't let any one person come to you like false prophet and say like, oh, I know all the answers. It was this and this. It was the flood of Noah. Like it may very well have been the mud flood, may very well have been the flood of Noah, but I highly doubt it based on the evidence I've seen. But I am still not going to rule it out because 10 years ago, I thought a man walked on the moon.
Yeah, it's like
we've been there.
I mean,
a bit longer for me, but yeah, I've been there, mate.
Goodness, like I always thought it was odd. Like when I seen the footage, like I could have probably been, a good 20 years probably an honest skeptic of it. But I mean, my favorite show was Star Trek growing up. I was a Star Trek nerd, followed by my favorite set of movies being Star Wars and stuff. So that was like that. It was like one of those abusive relationship things. Like I was almost like didn't want to admit that it was over type thing with space. And like the more and more you look into it, like with the moon landing, and I'm like, oh no, that's just, odd 60s film quality. It's, but yes, when I finally opened up and like went into dig into the moon landing, it was so much of a joke. NASA's just the biggest money laundering. And that's just like, well, how are they able to do this? How are they able to manipulate all this history? It's like, look at all the money they launder and shuffle all across this world. How many billions my government has given to Ukraine, and for what? Very little to show for it. Like they could have given a percentage of that to the homeless in America and solve homelessness. But we're shipping it over across seas for what?
Yeah. Well, at the moment we're spending 4 billion. Yeah. We're sending 4 billion to bury a queen now, bowl of cans.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Same thing.
But wasn't there a vote in Congress recently? I heard that they were going to vote whether to save all of the family-run restaurants and bars that shut down due to COVID and help people sort of get back on their feet, or we could send the money to Ukraine. And they voted to send it to Ukraine, which means obviously it's not going to Ukraine. It's going to line people's pockets. And had they actually helped the restaurant bars and owners, they wouldn't have been able to line their own pockets.
Oh, geez.
And what is it?
It just gets worse than that.
And NASA's budget is about 50 million a day, isn't it? I think $50 million per day.
Absolutely. Yeah, give or take 53 million, give or take. And they can't even get a rocket off the ground to test to see if it's even capable of going to bring humans to the moon. And that's just baffling to me.
Yeah, because we lost that technology, we destroyed it, and it's a painful process to build back.
I don't understand why they don't just hire a film company to do a decent video.
Well, I mean,
Stanley Kubrick's not around anymore.
That's why they couldn't be that's why they couldn't do the moon landing again. They lost their director. But I mean, and again, that's the reason why we don't see the moon landing footage. Like that's supposed to be, according to them in the narrative, one of the crowning achievements of humanity, of Earth. We put people on the moon. That should be plastered in every classroom. We should be looking at all the video and the footage. Oh, well, we lost a lot of the tapes and deleted it. And there was a big tape shortage in the 80s, don't you know? So they recorded over all the moon landing. Yeah, reused it.
And the telemetry data is all missing as well. So it's impossible to track the distance the actual ship went and came back, because that's gone as well.
And keep in mind, like that's just such BS. My country has no problem spending an abundance of money out of just redundancy. Like the Declaration of Independence is in like a big giant $10 million like glass. environmentally protected and sealed container, then locked in a big giant underground vault, and then, you know, the whole 9 yards for a piece of paper. Like all this moon landing footage, like, no, if like it was legit stuff that was actually real, like my country could have like very well saved it or invested in some more recording tapes for good old NASA. But like it didn't happen and they lost it. And then I even heard a video of some people finding NASA telemetry tapes or like videotapes from the moon landing in a dumpster in Burger King. Like a fast food dumpster found like tapes from NASA. And it's just silly. Like we're supposed to,
isn't it?
yeah, we're supposed to say we're the most advanced technology and we can't even put people back on the moon.
I don't understand how people can accept these claims that they make. Oh, we lost the telemetry data. We recorded over or just lost the recordings of the moon landing. How can any sane person look at that and be like, yeah, that makes sense?
Right.
It's also
it's an abusive relationship.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, like, it's also crazy that the new guy, like, was his Pettit or something? I think his name is, and he says we can't get past. Yeah, Don Pettit, and he says we can't get past the Van Halen belt, the radiation belt, and you're like, well, yeah, that's it. And then you say, but you did though in the 1960s. So why can't you now? You know, like, so they backtrack and all, like, then it.
Goodness, it does. Yeah. Well, if you listen, was it a Bean or whatever, the dude that flew in one of the original Apollo missions, made it to the moon. They had an interview of him and asked him like, oh, so you went through the Van Allen radiation belt. Like, how was that like? Like, oh, we went through the radiation. I didn't know even if we did, like they might have said something about, you know, you went through a radiation. I never felt it. Now here's a space shuttle mission. And keep in mind, that's the craziest part. The moon's 200,000 miles away. And since the 60s, late 60s, we haven't been anywhere near that. Like a couple hundred miles in quote low Earth or orbit is the highest they even say we go now. They had a space shuttle mission in the 90s. I remember as a kid watching it, like they were trying to test the shielding of space shuttle, et cetera, which was far more advanced, so we think, and well shielded ship than the Apollo 10 cans. And they said they were up like 10 or 20 miles above the space station, and they could only stay there for a short time because the radiation was like a blinding white light to them. Like even when they closed their eyes, they were seeing like white orb lights in their black vision. So it was apparently that big of an effect for the space shuttle astronauts. And of course, even if all that's even remotely true there, but it was such an issue for the space shuttle astronauts with 20, 30, 40 years better technology. How in the heck did the astronauts from Apollo fly all the way to the moon through it and then all the way home through it again?
Yeah,
it's just
I remember one of them. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that. There was the astronaut saying that we didn't realize the Van Allen belts were there. We were just passengers. He said we weren't doing anything. We were just passengers on a ship passing through. So we didn't even know we were passing through them. That was the excuse that they gave for not being affected by the radiation, because they didn't know it was there, which I thought was a load of horse shit.
Yeah.
It didn't affect me because I didn't know it was there. Oh, if you did know it was there, then yeah, I'd have been killed by it.
And shouldn't just the astronauts who are supposed to be some of the most intelligent and well read people in the world, shouldn't they know about that before they go to the moon?
Sorry, I was thinking when you said that first part about intelligent and well read, and then I was thinking of Don Pettit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Don Pettit.
Oh my gosh, that guy.
He's a character.
I don't talk about space much, but like mostly because I get mass reported if you do, because that's the type of NPC mindset people have. Like if you talk about NASA and modern science, and that's like the religion for these people. And
Yeah.
if you question it, like NASA is the only government organization in history that can not only be immune to criticism, but you are not allowed to criticize in the least. At least in my country by far. Like, you know, we'll go after both sides of the aisle. Here we'll go after, you know, the Senate and all this, but no, you can't talk about NASA.
No.
Whatever NASA said they did, they did.
Yeah, they are the new gods. It's like what they call scientism, the new religion.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
So do you find you get left alone talking about Tartaria and stuff like that? Do you sort of float underneath the radar? Because more so than like sort of like, you know, like more so than space and stuff like that, like NASA, do you sort of get away with a little bit more? Yeah. That's
what I like to kind of think. I always like to think myself probably more clever than I am. And I've had 3 iterations of my TikTok accounts. I haven't actually had one banned, knock on wood, but I have 2 of them severely shadow banned, which by shadow banning, just to give you a brief overview, I was at a point on my first TikTok and I went from, you know, 1 to 60,000 within a month or 2, basically. It was a roller coaster. And a lot of it, I was talking about NASA and stuff. Don Pettit was just, he was great feel, man. Like I could just solely make a TikTok account devoted to Don Pettit if I wanted to.
I hope you do.
Oh gosh, maybe I should. Like, there's this one video where he's talking about going out to the space station and he had to borrow a hammer from the Russians. And we only had like a little precision pounding hammer. So we needed a big hunking hammer and to space station. And I'd go out there and we'd start beating on the space station with this big hunking hammer. And I'm just like, bro, whose child is this?
Yes. He sounds like a 10-year-old boy with problems.
Like a Make-A-Wish kid that wanted to go to NASA before he died, but he never died. And then they're just like, felt bad for him. So they're like, I guess just like let him talk to the media. But then they stopped doing that. Like, I think Don Pettit he's actually been an astronaut for like, believe it or not, 30 plus years. I think like since the 80s. Like he's not a like newly versed guy in the first day on the guy roll, but he's like one of those perpetual first day gems at the office place. Like every day seems to be this guy's first day in NASA. And it's like, okay, well, we'll put him in front of the media. And then he's talking to this guy about what happens if the space station gets a leak. Well, then it has a leak. And and there's some procedure in place. I'm not sure what they are. And mind you, he's in another interview saying he's going up to space station to be the science guy and the repair guy. And they're like, well, what kind of science and repairing are you going to do at the space station? Well, living in space is there's a lot of opportunity for science and fixing things. So I'll be busy. And even the interviewer was like, jaw drop, like, okay.
Brilliant.
It's like a parody. They made their own parody of themselves.
There's a UK version of Don Pettit. He's not quite as bad, but Tim Peake. And there's a video of him on the space station, apparently.
Replaced Katara.
No, well, this one I'm referring to is that they always do the somersault, don't they? Where they're just clearly on harnesses, it looks like. And Tim Peake's doing his forward roll or backwards roll, and one of the cables comes loose or snaps, and he actually falls to the floor out of camera sight. And then he stands up, and he's just got this weird grin on his face. And they explained it by saying that he hit a pocket of gravity. There was a pocket of gravity on the
Pretty
ISS,
convenient,
and it affected. Isn't that just slightly convenient? And Tim Peake's the UK version of Don Pettit. Not quite as stupid, but there's one where Don Pettit's with another guy. I can't remember his name, and they're reading letters, and someone actually. The question was, whilst in space, have you ever looked into the deep void? but they were pronouncing the word whilst in space. And I remember they looked at each other like, how are we going to answer this? And one of the other guys said, yeah. And Don was like, yeah. And the other guy was like, yeah, you can see the stars, and you can see the molecular gas, and it's like, then there's another video of the actual Apollo 11 crew, Neil Armstrong, and they're saying, you can't see any stars, it's completely black. And it's like, well, hang on a second. Something's not adding up. It's so comical.
Improv comedy or something.
Oh my gosh, yes. I remember that interview. That was Tim Peck, and that interview with Tim Peck was with Don Pettit, that star one.
Yeah, you can see the stars.
Yes, and they both were like,
but they looked at each other. There was a moment where they looked at each other, and Don Pettit waited for the other guy to answer, and as soon as he said yes, Don Pettit's like, yeah, and you can see the molecular and the gas. And,
you can see everything, man.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Don Pettit's breakthrough in science and invention when he was on the space station? Because apparently this guy, whoever in NASA, was dumb enough to have Don Pettit, like, he had his own show, his little YouTube gig for a while, where he would do the silliest parody, almost filled, like you said, of himself just doing these kid level experiments. And one of them was he made a coffee drinking bag, and it was basically just like a pouch, like a plastic pouch that was filled with coffee, but the green screen on it was just so, like, literally there was a scene where the coffee left the bag and the bag became clear, and the coffee was over there, and then it just went shot back, and people were like, oh, that's just like that's just a feedback issue, like
just a camera glitch.
Yeah. And then at the end of that video, even then, it cuts out, like, it shows him going back to NASA, like the whole Kennedy Command Center, Houston Space Center, and it's like, okay, NASA signing off, Don Pettit, bye. And it cuts off, and it cuts off to a freaking green screen.
Oh no. They really should stop the live feeds, because that's when they make the most mistakes. It's like I've actually watched a video about it, and they're saying they're using augmented reality, and what they do, they use layered TV. So it's quite clever. So they actually have contact lenses in where they can see the additional layer. So that is how they can manipulate objects in the air, so they can move like microphones from one to another, and they actually see it. But there was a video where there's one guy and he's looking at an object that's not there, and he literally reaches out and takes nothing and puts it on a shelf, and it's like, hold on, are you just going to let that go? Like, there's literally nothing there. And he's grabbed it out of thin air, nothing. And you see him take it. He even takes it with his right hand, puts it into his left hand, and puts it on a shelf. And it's like,
but he hasn't done it.
And it's not there. And also, how can you put something on a fucking shelf, on a space that it's going to float away again, right? I mean, like, he just put it there as if it was like a paperweight, and it's so comical. But it's quite clever that they actually use the layered TV, and they do actually see the images that they're apparently manipulating. But with a 50 million budget a day, then I'm sure their technology's not going to be too shabby, as we say in the UK.
But that's what I'm saying. Why don't they hire like really good actors, and why don't they just get better CGI? They just seem like they spend a minimum.
Because the vast majority of the country or the world will believe whatever the hell they tell them to. It doesn't matter how terrible it is. And I believe it's almost an intentional thing. Like I've said with a lot of stuff, like since the fall of Tartarian, all that, like, it's been an intentional control. And they know people like us exist. They're not clueless that there's a lot of us that are awake and waking up, but they know a vast majority are blind, oblivious sheep. And the people like us that are out there are in a minority, and we see that shit and it infuriates us. It's like, come on, no, they're not in space. Like, dude, that guy, Don Pettit, is not an astronaut. Come on. And everybody else like, oh, you're just an idiot. You don't know how smart and hardworking astronauts are. Like, you could never do it yourself. Like, hell, foolish me. You're right. I always wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but I have ADHD. It was hard for me to, sit down and shut up in school and not ask a bunch of questions. So I'm like, fuck, I don't want to go and be, all this hard work and yada, yada, just go in space. But then I seen Don Pettit. It's like, Jesus Christ, I could have been an astronaut, man. Like
he's obviously connected though, isn't he? He's a Mason and he's been placed there. I think there's no way that guy was selected naturally by anybody. In my opinion, I think that his dad was a Mason, he's a Mason, and they've put him there because someone's told him that he's got to be there. There's no way that guy has got through on his own mentality. There's no way. He's just too fucking dumb.
I would like to see him pass an elementary school math test, let alone like engineering degree level stuff or anything like that.
I think he's like to see him walk in a straight line.
Yeah, no lie. Yeah. I think he's like one of those like reject kids of one of these elitist families that like, he's still obviously he's going to get his wealth and power. It's like, what do we do with Don? It's like, I don't know. Should we put him in the oil field? No, he's not. He will literally blow up. Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking about that.
Exactly. It's like, well, if we put him on an oil tank, he's going to blow up the oil tank. Yeah, you're right. It's NASA? Well, we can't put him in space. Is it real? Okay. Yeah. Hey, Don, you want to be an astronaut? Can I go to space station? Yes, Don.
That's exactly what I think it is actually reality.
Yep, that is perfect.
Even though it sounds like a joke.
Analysis.
It sounds like a complete joke, but
it's like his first day was probably the moon landing thing where he just blew the whole lid up. It's like, well, we'll just have the new Don. He can't mess it up too bad. We're just gonna have him talk about going to the moon. And they're like, so astronaut Don, yeah, but astronaut. What would you like to go? Oh, I'd go back to the moon in a heartbeat, but we destroyed all that technology, burned it. We can't make it in now, and we don't know how to. It's a painful process.
We're gonna go to Mars now. So what? You can't go to the moon because you destroyed the technology, but now you're going to Mars.
Meanwhile, like everybody on the sound stage there is just like pulling out collectively a fifth of Jack Daniels, and it's like, all right, guys,
we're fucked up here, man.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts on the space station? Is it just bullshit then? Is it just another set that they use to trick us into, thinking that space is real and that we could actually leave this planet? That's because that was the, all of this started when Antarctica started to be explored, and there was Operation High Jump. And they were sending nukes up, and it's like they found something like a firmament or a barrier, and it wasn't long after that there was the Antarctic Treaty was formed to prevent any public exploration, and then all of a sudden you've got NASA, and it's like, oh no, we can leave this planet, we can explore space, we've been to the moon, we've got a space race. Is that just one big diversion away from possibly that there's something going on down in Antarctica? Could there be a firmament, or could there be more land beyond? What's your thoughts on that?
So that's
more lands.
So that's a great question here. It's one I get asked a lot. Here's my official view of it. Like, not a globe earther by any means. I know NASA is 100% full of shit. But at the same time, I'm not really an any earther at this moment. We've realized here, especially in the last couple of decades, and some people even earlier than that, we have been lied to, categorically about everything. From the ground we're on, the history we know, the science we know, the principles of the matter around us that we know. That I've watched so much flat earth on videos and stuff like that, and damn good points. Damn good points. Am I willing to commit to a firmament and we can't leave? Maybe it's part of the, Star Trek loving nerd of my teenage years that just doesn't want to let that fully go. But I'm not ready to put my flag into any one camp particularly. That's always been my kind of official view. But at the same time, like, I respect and am open up to all views. Literally at the end of all my videos, question everything. And until basically until I can either go up there or those lying crooks come out and say, okay, it's flat, it's dome, can't leave. Sorry, guys, here's your money back. Which, I mean, is that going to ever happen? Is disclosure ever going to happen for the, powers that be? That's part of the reason why I push for this stuff, awakening the masses. It's a scale. It's like a teeter-totter. If you push enough people to the side, and we already got the people, that's the thing. Like, if even a small percentage realize that it's not a big group of people controlling us, it's less than 1% that really influence, operates, and controls everything since their dawn of history, essentially, at least the history in the immediate time that we know. And that's why I think I don't know if the elites start the reset necessarily. I don't think it's something that they can just flip a switch, but I think they have advanced knowledge. They have knowledge of the past that we don't have. And again, going back to what I said earlier, those who control history control the world. If you know when it's going to happen, and you got these bunkers in Greenland, these God only knows what it's in Antarctica, these underground cities and mountains, like, you can set yourself up pretty dang nicely for the next go around. Think of it as like you're playing a game you go over to your buddy's house to play a game, Mortal Kombat, whatever. He's been playing that game for years. It's your first time playing. Who's going to win? It's going to kick your ass up and down the game.
Good analogy.
That's how we are living. Like, they know all the cheat codes. They know all the secret stashes. They know all the secret weapons. And we're just like obliviously walking around, barely even knowing what surface we stand on. And it's a very important to find that out. And that's what I leave that to some of my great friends that I've met over the years doing this stuff, flat earthers and stuff. Like, I'm definitely a hell of a lot more close to flat earth people and creators on my channels than I am globe people. Like, you just see that like militant anger in people like that.
There's such a hostility towards even an idea of there being anything that goes against the official narrative. And I've heard of the elites being referred to as like sun worshippers, and that's why they've sort of constructed the heliocentric model, like the sun is heliocentric, being in the center. And I've also seen an interesting theory where the sun orbits our current our known lands that we know of now, but that the sun could gradually sort of move further out and create a sort of wider orbit, but it lessens the orbit above our known lands, and possibly that the sun would move over to the lands beyond. And I was wondering what your thoughts would be, whether the elites knew when the sun was on its new path, and they, could that be theoretically a reset for our known lands? And would they know when to leave and when to come back, or would they just move from land to land and just, like you say, they know the game, we don't, we're left behind, and they just come back after however many years, and it's just there's it's reset. Is that a possibility to you?
And I think so, to a degree, yes. And it kind of goes to some of the videos I posted, like these abandoned cities like San Francisco, St. Petersburg, Russia being one of them. I've collected, and I know long exposure, yada, 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 but there's no blurs, there's no idle horses, there's no idle fruit stands, there's no trash or rubbish, just empty, abandoned, muddy streets. And it's just, we as humans, we have senses that we don't realize. And one of those is that intuition, like you feel on off, that energy, that vibe. And you get that stuff with like looking at some of these pictures. Like that's that psychic, that connection, that power, that energy that we're not aware of, that it's still there in us. It just lays dormant. And you see that, and you just know something's unsettling. The this cathedral in St. Petersburg. It's from 1880s. It literally has overgrown weeds and brush all the way up to the steps. It looks like it was abandoned for some time. So yeah, I think these elites very well, they may not know the minute nor the second or the date exactly, but I think they have the signs. And I think even now, like, I don't know if we're close to one or not. I theorize myself with resets, it seems like every couple hundred years or so, which would bring us to about that point pretty quickly. And you can see just a lot of strange things, strange occurrences in the sky, second suns, just oddities, green skies. I don't know if you've seen those videos going around a couple months ago, making their rounds, but like Nebraska, I believe, or South Dakota it was, the sky just literally turned like lime green. And it was like right in the middle of a storm rolling in. And I've lived in Tornado Alley, as it's called over here. Like, I've been through some pretty big tornadoes, and the skies will get muted green during a tornado. Yeah. And in inclement weather. Yeah. It'll get like this odd, like kind of like almost pukish green. This was like key lime green style color. Like, it was just the brightest.
Was it almost like the Northern Lights? Because they're that sort of similar color as well, aren't they? The aurora borealis.
And then the red skies are showing up abundantly. Even up here, my own city, it was right in the middle of storm rolling in, and all of a sudden the skies just went like the pinkest I have ever seen them. Like, it wasn't red, it was just like vibrant pink. And I have a buddy I associate with in Brazil. He always posts pictures in Rio of just these red skies almost all the time. I had a follower message me or post my comments the other day saying like, so I don't know what else to do with this, so I'm going to come and post on your comment section, which I was honored, but kind of made me just really jaw drop. He said, has anybody else sun or moon's been full moon for a month in Ohio? I'm in Akron, Ohio, or whatever I think it was. And he's like, the moon's been a full moon for a month there. And I was like, what? First of all, your first initial thought's like, okay, that's kind of BS. That's impossible. Exactly. So I'm like, well, that's really interesting. But like, who would put themselves up? Number one, I always, try and give people the benefit of the doubt, listen to all people that come to me. And for one, my first thought was like, wow, that's crazy. It's false, whatever. But why would somebody put themselves up to that much scrutiny in my comment section? Like, they're going to get grilled. Of course they got grilled, but they stuck to it. And I was like, well, I'm going to pin your comment and see if and sure enough, I put his comment on the top, try and get some answers. And there were dozens of people in Ohio saying, yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything else about it, but yeah, the moon's been all full and stuff for a month. And it's bizarre to me. I mean, can I say 100% sure? Yeah. Could it be, dude just capping? Yeah, sure. That could be possible too. But the thing is, like, I have personally myself witnessed things in the sky, like in the last couple of years, especially, that have blown my mind. Like, I'm 34 years old. For 34 years before the last 2 or 3 years, I have maybe seen a handful or two of verifiable to me oddities in the sky, UFO, whatever you want to call them. And that was just like brief instances in my life. And I've always been one drawn towards the sky and staring up in space, especially at night. I just love the stars and yada, yada. Now, since the last 2 years, I have been seeing now daily orbs in the sky.
Yeah, for the last few years. Few years, I've been exactly the same. We was talking about on past podcasts, me and David, weren't we?
What do you guys think they are?
I really don't know. Like, say, I'm more of a flat earther realm kind of guy, a bit like yourself. But like, I don't think they're aliens from space. I think it's either the government doing something, or something a little bit more mysterious. But I would lay my money on it's being something to do with the government keeping an eye on us or something. Don't know.
That was my first thought too. And because, yeah, I mean, you initially think like it's got to be, but okay. This is where I think it's something more, like back to the spirituality connection of this realm. Every other individual species but us seems to have. We're all energy. We're all, basically batteries. We're connected together. We're able to sense things that we don't even know. Like everything around us is also energy. And I think those orbs are some kind of energy beings, like in a manifested form. Now, here's why I say this. I've seen them fly in a way that no mechanical craft can replicate. And I'm not saying they were doing feats of amazing barreling engineering. They were swimming almost. If you look at them, and especially the bright ones, they look like they're swimming.
Yeah.
And they will strobe in and out, and they will just phase out and disappear.
I've seen them disappear, yeah.
And I almost feel like you guys know that ringing in your ears feeling. You guys ever hear that? That's another sense that they say we have. And I've been kind of
really? I've never
keen.
I used to get that a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah. So some it's tinnitus or whatever too. I mean, that's the thing, definitely. But no, listen to those senses. Listen to that. Just like they say, trust your gut. Trust things like that. There's actually a breakdown of that, like different types of pitches. They say it's like your guardian angel, your spirit guide, etc. But and you, of course, you look at it from the mainstream today that we've been brought up, and you're like, oh, well, that's just fairy tale. But when I've started diving into all these rabbit holes over the last decade, especially like the last couple of years, that's one thing I started focusing on, especially the more and more I've seen of those. When I see them in the sky, my ears are ringing first. I have an instinctual urge to just kind of pop outside for a smoke or whatever. And my eyes know where to go. I'm not saying I'm like some super power or anything like that, but it's just like an intuitive thing. Like I just look, I was like, oh, to my wife, I'm like, Brooke, look up over there. And thank God for my wife. She's the analytical skeptic in the world, but like I've made her a firm believer, but she always has kind of like, it's like, I don't know if you ever watched the X-Files. There's a big show over here 10, 20 years ago, but yeah. She was my Scully.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was the Mulder, always dragging her into these crazy rabbit holes, and she believed me enough to like not think I'm crazy, but like, she'd always try and keep me in check. She's having a harder and harder time debunking me these days, it seems like.
Great. But it seems like you're right to say, like, we've done the same thing. Me and David was talking about the same thing, and I'll go out the garden, I'll lay on the grass, and I will just look up and I will start seeing stuff. Me and David had the same conversation where he actually said we're vibrating on a different frequency, so we're not seeing what it really is, but we're getting signs and symbols of it, like what you just said.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's very like if we can open up to that, and that's just it. That's that teeter-totter. That's that if the collective consciousness scales. If we can tip enough of it organically, I almost feel like we can change the whole world without any violence or any shot ever having to be fired, just by a collective manifestation.
Exactly. That's the exact same thing that I believe needs to happen for us to have a real revolution. It's a revolution of the mind, not a revolution of like violence and going to.
Maybe that's when we win the game. Maybe that's when we legit win it.
That is the only way we win the game, in my opinion.
Have we ever had that in history before? We've had tons of revolutions, tons of rises and falls of people in power, but they've always been in my study of history, through militaristic violence. Like no ground shaking revolution has happened without like shots being fired, essentially. And I feel like that's the quagmires we always get into. We're always like prone to violence, prone to just like attacking fellow humanity.
Yeah. But
and then we get these powers.
Yeah. instead of that, we would just be in a different way, have a different mindset, in a way develop into something more, and then there would never be any need for us to go into war with anybody, because we would see it for what it is and progress into something different.
We are all one race and all one species, the human race. And so many people are where it's Sun Tzu's art of war, conquest through division. Like that's what the elites do.
Yeah.
It's real basic stuff they do on a big scale, but we're just so blinded collectively to see it. Like we're divided by, sexuality, by political affiliation, by race, by country, by nationality, by religion. And it's just what you find is further and further and further division until we're down to the smallest, tiniest little denominators. They can just come in and blow through us like a light breeze.
Yeah. And that's why they do stuff like with all the gender stuff that they do now. It's just another way of making even men and women even more of a denomination of what they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like 70
I'm a
different
believer
genders
in
now, isn't there? So you're even just on gender alone, you're divided so much, and then you've got everything else on top of that. It's crazy.
I'm a big believer in the law of one. Like we're all a part of the same source. So we are just fractals of that one source that made everything and is everything.
I've heard that, yeah. The whole, I am you, you are me thing. Very intriguing that. And that's basically if I remember right, the theory of everything is experiencing, we're experiencing every moment, everybody through like one consciousness throughout time as one.
Yeah.
At once, essentially.
Yeah.
We're just in different parts.
Exactly.
Time is a construct of man.
For sure.
Where does your what's your sort of belief on we've gained 1,000 years? Like, do you think they've added 1,000 years somewhere throughout history?
Gosh, that's another one that's some of a fairly recent quagmire that I jumped down. And there's evidence of that already in mainstream history where, so many of the events of history that's taught to us is interchangeable, or dates are not necessarily 100% confirmed, but they still teach them as fact nonetheless. But the theory is that they added 1,000 years of history, and there's good, cause for that theory. When you look at all these buildings, like the cornerstones on them and stuff like that, anything that's prior to modern time, anything that hasn't been renovated or, new faces put on the side of the building, you'll oftentimes find the date of founding, which is another interesting word choice that they use for these old style buildings. You always see founded 1880 or whatever. Yeah. But it's not a 1. It's a clear I, or it's a J, which a lot of people say was the year, and that's where all these grand buildings, the 1,000 years reign of Jesus. And there's a lot of there's a lot of credence to give to that. And that's again just the same with like NASA. Like I found more like truth to religion and closer to religion than I ever had the rest of my life. And I've fallen out of religion for many years until like, I was going to be a Catholic priest right out of high school. That kind of, thank God I didn't do that. But I was going to go to the seminary and stuff. There was a period in time where I was religious, and then I had a big falling out for many years. But a lot of these rabbit holes, like they go back to that, a creator, a God, and Jesus. Like there's certain like provable points of like the Bible and the Quran and, the book of Enoch and stuff that have been well documented. Like the flood of Noah, every religion has talked about it. Like they say the Bible is like what the most historically accurate book that's ever, been around, like, I just hate how religion, modern day religion, is another form of division, because I feel so lost myself in that area. Like, I know all these religions that are presented to us today are just another form of control and division. And I feel they all have bits and pieces of the truth, but they're all like almost intentionally scattered out. And then like, oh, hey, your religion? Yeah, you hate that religion. And that religion, they want to take over you. And it's like, you know what, like we're all taught like on the core of all of our religion, and mostly 99% of all the religion in the world that's practiced has the same common theme of, you know, being good and kind and loving to yourself and your neighbors, your family and your friends, and just being a good person. But then it's like they, you know, the power of man corrupts and does what it does best. It's like they put in little seeds of dissidence and all of that too. Like, yeah, be a good man to your neighbors and friends. Anyone that doesn't believe in your God, kill him. Just do it. It's like, okay, but be a good person, you know, but it's okay if you kill that person in the name of God, because, you know, your God is right, their God is wrong. Like, just trust us. That's baffling to me, where we had civilizations that could build pyramids together, build all this uniformed architecture together, seemingly be one and connected, and then lost all that. And then now they hate each other over the name of religion and borders, etc. And yeah, that's where that 1,000-year reign thing, it seems exactly plausible. I've seen buildings and stuff that have many J's on the front, like J 1820 or something like that. A follower of me in the UK messaged me saying like they were told that their building was made in the 1800s. And that's what the deed said and all that. But they were like digging through some sub basement that they found in their building, and they found paperwork from this building of theirs that was from the 1600s. And they called up their loan holder, or whatever it is. I'm not sure what too much of the realty practices in the UK over there, but they called the person in charge of the loan, and they basically came over, gathered up all the documents, and never said a damn word again.
Wow.
That was just like one just random person's like message to me. So like that's a couple hundred years. Like, is it just 1,000 years? I can't say for sure. That's why I don't want to say yes, that was 1,000 years they removed and it was the reign of Jesus. But like, yeah, there is definite evidence to that. Absolutely.
Wow.
But wasn't it? It was even a Catholic priest that came up with the Big Bang Theory, wasn't it?
Yes, it was indeed.
So it was, wasn't it? So everyone thinks that it must have been like a scientist or an atheist. Sorry, I didn't.
I said they're debunking themselves, aren't they? That's the crazy thing about that.
But it's like it creates more confusion and more division. There's a Catholic priest
bingo
that has come up with the Big Bang Theory, and it's like, well, this whole Big Bang Theory is like we're just an accident. It's a cosmic sneeze, and billions of years have passed, and you know, you're worthless. You're just on this spinning planet flying through the solar system, and you just need to be a good worker and pay your taxes. And it's crazy that came from yeah, exactly. But that came from Catholicism, you know. It's like an actual man of God that came up with that. It's just another way to divide people, to confuse people.
Is that the Dan spiral though? Like, as I always say on there, like, you know, it's sort of, is man the evil? Like, no matter how good we are and how good we want to be, do we fuck it up in the end anyway? Like, you know, and there's greed and power just take over all the time.
I think that there's more good people than bad, but it's going back to that saying, Joe, that I've said to you, that all it takes to conquer evil, all it takes for evil to win is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah, that's so true.
There's too many good men that will just, you know, I've got to go work, I've got to look after my family, and then you've got this small percentage of just pure like evil sociopaths that are in charge, and all it takes for them to continue to be in control is for the good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
Because if we all came together it's a
But
different
it don't fill
story.
you.
But
But the thing is, obviously, is it don't fill me with comfort by just seeing what happens when a queen dies, or when, like, do you know what I mean? That's when I sort of just go to myself, we're never going to win. Because
I agree, because there's too many people that go along with
sheep.
And we were talking about it earlier, weren't we? And it's just ludicrous.
I know what you mean there. It's almost, isn't now that is it that good men can't act, or that they're made not to act. And I thought the same thing. And I feel that's just the system that they put us in. I think we are so much more powerful and capable, and not even a physical sense. I'm just saying in an overall sense, individually, collectively, than we can even fathom. And the people that control us, I don't think they quite have it like us. I don't know, reptilians, aliens, Anunnaki, you can call them whatever you want to, but they don't pass the human vibe check to me. Like, I don't know if they're just that evil, that corrupt, the people that run our world, that they just don't have that human sense to me, but they almost fear us collectively coming together, unifying, because if evil wins when a good man doesn't do anything, but at the same time, like, it only takes a few good men to change the course of history, to change the course of events. And who knows what cataclysmic, or what spark can start that. It's we're humans. I have seen humanity collectively do terrible things. I've seen them do collectively amazing things. What I usually always find as the common theme in a lot of them is we are made to do terrible things when we are influenced to do terrible things organically, without reaction, without thinking, without being told what to do. You see people, I've seen that video that just put so much faith into me and humanity not too long ago. A pizza delivery driver from Indiana, just driving down the road 11 o'clock at night, and came across a house engulfed in flames. 20-year-old kid. He called the fire department, and then he threw his phone down and he jumped in that burning building with no formal training, with nothing. And he saved 5 children that day. By the time the first responders arrived on scene, you see like the cops with the body camera, and the house was just an inferno. And this guy was like literally something out of an action movie. Like, if it didn't make you like choke up and just fist pump, dude jumps out of a fucking window with this little 5-year-old girl in hand, wrapped up, and just like, boom, you see him like right on camera. It's like all comes running out, coughing and covered in soot, hands the kid to the cop and collapses on the ground, smoke damaged. And like, he's like barely able to breathe. And he's like, kids, okay. Like, that was his biggest concern. This dude's a 20-year-old pizza guy, man. Like, nobody told him that night you had to be a hero. Nobody, like, our society's told us to sit and wait for the experts, sit and wait for the people whose job it is. And, somewhat collectively, yeah, we do, but it made a difference that night. That one man that seemingly had nothing to gain for it, he saved 5 kids' lives. And who knows what happens to those 5 individuals now, that they're allowed a second chance because of that random stranger, that they could save the lives of another person. You know what I mean? Like,
that's amazing. That is amazing.
That's incredible.
But
that's what I like to refer, see, because most people have just filmed it on their mobile phone and just waited. And he's chucked his phone down onto the ground, and he's gone in there, and he's willing to risk everything just to save people.
I mean, I know I'd like to say now,
I just hope those kids don't grow up to be astronauts.
Right. I mean, I know I'd like to say, like, in the moment, like, talking about, no, you're so true, though. I know I'd like to say in the moment, though, like, oh, yeah, I do the same thing. But, like, who knows, really? And, like, there's a lot of people, like, you see a building just engulfed in flames, and he didn't know there's 5 kids in there for one. Like, he thought that could have just been an abandoned house. Like, no, that dude was called to that building. That's where, you gotta look, there's some type of higher power. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. And that's where we gotta have faith in humanity. Because if we have faith in each other, and it's like the rule of one theory you have, it's going to spread like an inferno. If you have faith in your fellow man, that's basically having faith in yourself. Absolutely. And that's just basically like, modern pep talk, motivational speaker 101. Like, you got to have confidence and belief in yourself, like pump yourself up to be able to achieve your goals. Like, if you're going to be dreary and I'm not going to do this, and you're going to be a shit, like, stain on society, whatever society really is. Like, you still, and that's the sucky part, like, as much as we know all the bullshit, we still have to go up and go and do our jobs in the morning. But like, that's the thing, you can either sit with that lump on a log type of mentality. It's like, oh, this world sucks, it's BS, yada yada. But I have things in my own life that, I know there's a lot of BS, and it can be very depressing and miserable looking at all the lies and stuff we're in still to. But then I look at my son, like, just like the other day was his first day of school here. He's 4 years old, and like, that's a monumentous moment. For one, I'm really scared about him going to any type of school that's not me. I'm still on the fence if I want to homeschool him or not. I kind of think I am, but at least it's a really small, nice little neighborhood school right across the street from my house. Like, I can literally look out my window and see my son's school. So I love that. And it was such a moment as a dad, and it just filled me with such sense of humanity and pride and like love. Like, setting him off to school, he was upset and sad, but like, me and my wife were the ones like choking back tears. And then
I've had it a couple of times. I know exactly how you felt.
Yep. I'm a first timer. So you guys probably have like a kid or two on me. Like, what I'm going through now. Like, I'm a rookie at that. Like, I'm experiencing all those moments for the first time. And it's also just giving me so much faith in humanity and wanting to leave. I don't know what I'm going to accomplish in my life, but I just hope to make it a little bit better for the people ahead of me. And if I can just, take care of it a little bit to like instill a better sense of togetherness and a better like sense of the future, like the path we're on is not a good path that I want anyone, let alone my son, to have to deal with. Like, I worry to death of just like the day coming where I'm not going to be able to be there for him. And I'm only 30 years old. I never thought I not too long ago, I was sitting there jumping off of, cliffs into lakes and, driving my car super fast. And then you have a son and you're like, oh my God.
No
Everything changes.
When I brought that little thing, I still remember him coming home from the hospital. Like, I drove like I had like glass in the back, like I was taking bumps, like going 1000 speed limit. Like,
it's a beautiful thing. You sound like you'd be a great dad, man. Well, you are a great dad.
I appreciate that.
It sounds like that.
Yeah.
But you worry what's going to be left for them, don't you? It's like that
every day.
I think that's why we try to make things better, because one day
the truth.
So one day you're not going to be there, and it's going to be your kids, and it's going to be them faced with this crazy place that we live in, and you just hope that when we make a difference, that it's going to help them. I've got 2 kids myself, and I just hope that, obviously one day we're not going to be here for them, but we just hope the best. And I just want the best. And
I'm
it's
the same.
Crazy. I know exactly what you're saying. It's nuts.
I'm the same. Is in the same thing where I really truly care about the people that come well after us. Like, so my son, my boys' children, obviously, and their children's children, and I care about them as well. And that's, like I say, I don't just want to leave it nice for my children. I want to leave it nice for my great grandchildren.
So you need to teach your children the lessons of life to do that.
Yeah, I do. That's I'm exactly the same as you guys.
I know you do. Yeah. I'm just saying that's the life lesson, isn't it? You pass it down. and then you
And
hope that your kids pass it on and pass it on. Sorry,
I
David.
think
go
that
on.
the best thing we can do is just to try to make all of the people around us, their lives as much better as we can, just through our actions. And that pizza guy who saved those children, that's obviously a huge thing. But if we can do stuff in that light, obviously we can't save loads of kids every day from a burning building, but we can do small things every day to make other people's lives better.
I think you're bang on all, because I try to do that as much as I can now, because generally I think of myself as a nice guy, like you guys probably do. And I do like to just leave people, like when they do get to know me and things like that, they go, he's a nice fella. Do you know what I mean? Like if you can help someone, like I've told you on here, like if you can help an old person or just help someone out and they go, oh, he's a nice fella, you've done something half decent, and they, you know, and yeah, it just makes the world go round a lot nicer. Like Jake was saying, it's a lot harder to do something horrible than it is to do something nice.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. I think instinctively, I think instinctively, blind situation without any influences, 8 out of 10, we're going to be running into that burning inferno building. 8 out of 10 of humanity, like that's my faith in them. And I know but that's a blind, unbiased, uncontrolled event. Nowadays, though, with how the media's got their snares in everybody, like that's just it. Everybody's going to be sitting there on their phones, filming it, etc. Like there's going to be very few of those people that aren't influenced or controlled and always worried more about themselves than, bettering humanity. And that's just it. It's I don't know if you guys have ever read the book 1984. It's a very good book. Comparison to the modern
George
day
Orwell.
world. Yep. Yeah.
It's an accurate prediction.
And it's a thing.
Almost.
The gentleman in that book, Winston, he is the dude that spoiler alerts. So was betrayed the protagonist essentially. But one thing that always kind of stood out to me with what he said, and it's kind of came back to leaving this world a better place for our kids, is, and people always say it's like, oh, there's so much truth to undig, you're never going to find the answers, and it's kind of a acceptance a lot of truth seekers have to come with. If you're doing this to get an answer to a question, like, you're going to have a bad time. You try as you might to get that solid yes, like 2 + 2 is 4 answer, but you come to an acceptance, you are not going to find and solve a lot of these answers conclusively. Most of the questions you find answers to will lead to 10 more questions. But, and that's where I go back to that 1984, that Winston was talking to Arthur and said, we are the dead, meaning, if those who stand up against the party, those who stand up against the narrative, they're already dead. Like, we can't hope to build this utopia in our lifetime. We might not find all the answers in our lifetime, but that's okay to me, especially with my son, because we are the living dead, and we live for our future generations to be able to live. Yeah, that's what we are here for. Like, we might not see that promised land, we might not see that utopia on that hill, that shining city, but god damn, if I can't push my son most of the way there before I go.
It's what you're learning and teaching them that's the important thing.
Amen.
Yeah, and
Amen.
just doing the right thing, and then hopefully that will lead to
snowball,
a different world,
trickle down all
exactly,
around,
snowball effect. And that's fine if I don't live through that, but I've done some good stuff along the way, then I will be very happy about that.
Exactly right. Well, gentlemen, I do have to run to the store real quick before I pick my son up from pre-K here. He's getting done in about a half hour. I'd love to do some more of this if you guys would be down for another talk
we would
sometime
absolutely
soon.
We would absolutely love
Jake,
it. We really
Absolutely.
appreciate you coming on, Jake. It's been fantastic.
It's been an
love to have
absolute
you on
pleasure.
again.
We've loved it.
Yeah.
You're very insightful.
And you're so funny as well. We've been laughing more than we've been listening.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate it. Hey, if you guys send me a copy of this, I'll upload it on my YouTube. I'll throw you guys some shout outs, get you guys some some cred, get you pushed on that way. But yeah, I'd love to upload on my YouTube here, because I had a great conversation. I think we guys really kind of connected, and I'd love to do it again soon.
Yeah, that
I
would be
feel
great.
exactly the same way.
Love to have you back
It would be
on.
great for you to join. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime, guys. I mean, heck, I'll be gladly to be a series regular. Send me a copy of this or whatever. And just shoot me a message here, and we'll get something together and hopefully get together again real soon.
Brilliant.
Sounds great, brother.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Jake.
Thank
It
you,
was a
Jake.
pleasure talking to you all and meeting you guys all. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, mate.
And you.
Have
and
a
you,
good
man.
one.
See you, Jake.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
Guys,
later.
bye-bye.
Bye.